Hi guys, sorry I'm a minute late. I was just talking to myself for like a minute. I am Coach Alexa. For those of you that don't know me and don't have me as a coach, I am one of the newer coaches. I just got brought on the team in September, so that was super exciting. So I'm here for my Facebook Live session, and tonight I'm going to be talking about how to wing it efficiently. Um, whether that be in the kitchen, on this program, whatever. Um, so I have 10 bullet points I'll be going through. If you guys have any questions at any time, just post them below whenever so that I have a list to go through at the end. But before I get started, I want to just kind of introduce myself, tell you guys a little bit about who I am, how I got here, my athletic journey, I guess if you want to call it. So I've always been pretty athletic my whole life. I started out in middle school with gymnastics, which led to competitive cheerleading. I did that for 8 years and did that all across the U.S. competing. I'd practice, like 5 days a week. I was always in the gym, always tumbling, doing something to get better in the sport. It was basically my life. When I was a sophomore, I actually tore my ACL cheerleading. So for those of you that are going through some crazy injuries, I totally feel you. It's the worst, and you just got to stay positive. But so that happened, and it was a pretty long recovery. I was out of commission for like 6 to 7 months, and taught me a lot ultimately, but went through a lot of PT. And part of my PT was CrossFit type workouts. So I would squat, I would do a lot of range of motion exercises to get my strength back in my knee. So after I started doing CrossFit with that, I kind of made it into my new sport. So I was still doing cheerleading at the time, and I was also CrossFitting, using that as a way to get better with cheerleading. But after I aged out of that in my senior year of high school, I started competing in CrossFit, and it was more of just like a recreational competing. It wasn't anything crazy like CrossFit regionals or games or anything, but I started doing that, and 2 years ago, actually exactly 2 years ago, was when I officially switched over to the dark side and just do Olympic weightlifting. So I just lift heavy all the time now. um, so I actually around the same time, this brings me to my WAG journey. Around the same time exactly, I contacted a D and found out more about working against gravity and started working with her. This is so cool. So I started working with a D 2 years ago. I was prepping for my first meet ever. I was total noob. I had no idea what I was doing. I was kind of sitting in between weight classes, and I was kind of new to counting macros too. I was just like winging it, kind of doing my own thing. Didn't really know how to lose weight. I used a stupid macro calculator online. I was like, oh, I'm just gonna use these numbers. But so I was sitting in between weight classes, and my coach was like, no, you're not gonna cut weight. Like, I don't want you to have to worry about cutting weight at your first meet ever. I just want you to worry about making lifts. So I was like, oh, fine, whatever. And I was like right on the line of being able to qualify for nationals if I were a weight class below. So that's why I was like, kind of want to cut weight. So I didn't tell my coach that I was going to be doing this, and I decided to start working with a D to cut to 58. And so that happened. I cut weight, made it, and qualified for nationals my first meet. And after that, I kind of realized how awesome it was to not only use nutrition to fuel my body and change my body composition, but once my training started getting more intense, I realized that it was much more than just food. Like, it actually helped me in training. So one thing led to another. 2 years later, here I am as a WAG coach. So now I get to talk to you beautiful people all day, and I wouldn't change it for the world. So on to what I'll be talking about tonight. how to wing it efficiently in the kitchen, on this program. I'm going to be giving you guys lots of tips and tricks on how to be successful and deal with your busy lives and not have to dedicate your entire life to meal prep. So I'm just going to go through and name all the points. Make sure that when you have questions, comment right away. So I have a list of questions to go through at the end. I will be doing about 10 minutes at the end and go through all of the questions, hopefully all of them that you guys have posted. So first one brings me back to middle school acronym called KISS. It is Keep It Simple, Stupid. So this absolutely has to be sustainable for you guys. And this is not meant to be super complex, right? It's just counting macros. And if counting macros and making these crazy recipes super complex type deal is your thing and that's sustainable for your lifestyle, then that's totally fine. But that's usually not the case for 85% of people, right? So just because you're part of WAG and see all these crazy recipes posted doesn't mean that you are the next Dusty, right? If you guys don't know Dusty, he's our awesome member who makes the craziest recipes. You might know him on Instagram as the Flexible Baker, but he's very talented and it's awesome that he does that, and he makes the most insanely delicious desserts. I'm sure some of you have tried, but not everyone has the time for that. So the reality of it is that if you joined WAG, it's probably because you want to either, whatever your goals may be, the ultimate goal is for you guys to find something that's sustainable for you in the long term. And it's going to be mainly about how your lifestyle coincides with the amount of time that you have to allocate to food prep. So for someone like me, I'm lucky enough to work from home and talk to you guys all day. And this is my office right here. I work on my island, right? And I'm right next to my stove, right next to my fridge, and I have the opportunity to kind of make my meals really complex. So essentially that could work for me, even though I keep everything so simple and eat breakfast 3 times a day. But for people like who work in an office, for example, my boyfriend works in an office and has only 60 minutes to either eat or come home and make something for lunch. So if you are in that type of setting, your time constraints are obviously much tighter than someone like mine. So complexity doesn't really work for you, and that's fine. So this is where you should ask yourself, you know, like, what's your bottom line? How simple can you make the foods and meals that you're eating to fill your macros and feel good, not get sick of what you're eating, and then hit your macros at the end of the day? So I'll leave you with that. What's your bottom line, I guess? So that's point number 1. Point number 2, think in terms of single macro foods. So it's going to be much easier, obviously, if you go grocery shopping with single macro foods in mind. So buy foods that are just dense in one single macro at a time. And usually when you're winging it, think about what happens. You're left with a deficit in 1 or 2, and you're not balanced with all 3 of your macros. So it's good to have things on deck that you're familiar with, that you can just wing it, throw them together because they're protein, fats, and carbs, instead of playing macro Tetris with a bunch of crazy things that you have no idea, or takes a bunch of time to create and plug into MFP. It's just annoying. So usually for me, my go-tos for protein are definitely egg whites, tuna, chicken breast, deli turkey. It's super easy, and we have a ton of Progenics in the cupboard because it's low in fat, and you can easily make protein shakes with some berries or something. My go-tos for carbs are usually always potatoes, berries, fruit, vegetables, oats. I make oats every single morning. It's a staple in my diet. I've literally had it every single day for 2 years. I never get sick of it. So and think in terms of that, like, what's something that you're going to eat every single day and not get sick of? It's super simple and easy to throw together and takes 5 minutes. All right, moving on. Point 3 is going to be buying frozen or already cooked foods. So this is super awesome because most frozen foods that you buy already have macros right on them, and they're usually portioned out. So like, for example, the grocery store we have here, Wegmans, I don't know if you guys have heard of it. If you haven't, I'm so sorry, because it's the most amazing place ever. So they have a big freezer section, as I'm sure like all grocery stores have, um, with a bunch of just like bulk salmon, chicken, burgers, and everything. So I have my whole freezer stocked up with that stuff, so I can easily just defrost it, and boom, I have my protein that I can throw in with some frozen veggies and that I can warm up. And the cool thing about that is that like they don't go bad, so you can keep in the freezer. If you don't eat them within the first week, you have them for as long as they're there. And it's as simple as just boiling some frozen veggies and throwing it in a Tupperware. And there's just so many ways that, like, if you're keeping your meals simple like that, there's so many ways to spice up the same things with different spices, different condiments, or what have you, stuff like that. So there's really endless possibilities with that. So point number 4, pretty self-explanatory. Just log it before you eat it. Duh, right? So it's like you're gonna set yourself up for success that way, and it's really just that simple. I don't really have much to elaborate on it, but like even if you're laying in bed, you're like, oh, tomorrow I'm gonna grab a Quest bar before I go out of the house. Like just plug that into MyFitnessPal, and that way you at least have something. If you already have your breakfast prepped, just plug that in before you go to bed and worry about the rest later, you know? So if you have things that you're gonna bring on the go to work, worry about that, plug it in. Even if you have to just like plug in an estimate, if you have an apple in the fridge that you haven't weighed yet and you're gonna weigh when you get to work, just plug in 100 grams, something like that, just so you have an idea of what your day looks like. Number 5, make sure you prioritize your goals and align them with your preparation. So if you guys want to accomplish your goals, then how you're going to get there is going to be your first priority. So you have to have a plan of action, like plan the hunt, hunt the plan, basically. So if you have a goal, the first thing that you should be able to do is explain to someone what it is, not only what it is, but what you're going to do to get there and the steps that you have to take to get there. And you can't just say, oh, I want to lose 10 pounds by just counting macros. Like, that's what I'm going to do. You have to set a plan each day, each week, each month, however long your goal demands you to be diligent for, and come up with a plan of action, because you're not going to go anywhere if you don't have the details behind all of that. Which brings me to my next point is you have to make time. So going back to what I said, how you're going to accomplish your goals matter. And everybody has the ability to budget something, and you know, you put all these you have all these marbles, you put them in different places in your life. And sometimes you don't even realize how many marbles you have out there, and you have to at least find the balance. So if your biggest problem is your time constraint, then you might have to look a little bit deeper, take away some of those marbles that are elsewhere that aren't really doing anything for you, and do what you need to do to accomplish your goals. And so someone who might not have a lot of time might have to be willing to be a little bit more flexible and buy already prepared foods or packaged foods and just use the resources that they have in front of them in order to be successful. So their type of meal prep might just be a little bit different than most people. Like, you don't have to stay up all night cooking. You just got to think of it like that. And okay, so shift workers, I'm going to bring this up because this is huge, and I hear so many people that have this issue. And I haven't experienced your guys' work, how long you are in a hospital for, all these physicians who just don't have time to eat. So I want to touch on this. I know your time is precious, and so are your days off. So it's really hard to manage that, I'm sure. I totally understand. And the first thing I want to bring up with that is I would say, instead of planning to strictly hit your macros, I would just say just commit to planning. Like, you need to commit to planning your day, or at least half of it. And it's obviously going to be best, again, to log in before you eat it and put your meals the night before so you're set up for success, and at least have at minimum 2 meals and a couple snacks in MyFitnessPal, My Macros Plus, whatever you use. And you can worry about the rest later, and it's going to be a lot easier on you to play less macro tetras at the end of the day. And something that'll make your life super easy, I know, would be something in the crock pot. You can cook things in bulk, buy frozen already cooked prepared foods that you can just throw together with. And I know, like, it's so fun to make crazy complicated meals, but when your life is this complicated and crazy and you don't have enough time, then your meals shouldn't be this crazy and complex. Because besides, anyways, having less complex meals, I think of it this way at least, having less complex meals allows me to have more room for treats at the end of the day. So I'll always save something like ice cream or chocolate if I'm eating super simple in terms of single macro foods throughout the day. So that's another bonus to that. But basically with this, the reality is your meals don't have to be beautiful, and it's realistic to just simply eat in terms of nourishing yourself and nourishing your body when you can. And for physicians that are always on their feet running around for 12 hours, small frequent meals are not going to be realistic in a hospital setting when downtime is super minimal. So I know a couple people who find that eating really big and dense meals a couple times during their shift, or one in the beginning, one when they have a little bit more time, that works for them. And then having like a couple just on the go snacks here and there, to just snack on when you can, like when you're walking for, I don't know, I guess I don't really know how it works because I haven't worked in a hospital, but I can imagine that you can just eat a bar walking down to like your next patient's room or something, right? I don't know, I could be wrong. But either way, it's better to be prepared that way, because I have heard that there's just temptation everywhere, and I'm sure the hospital food is not very good. So I guess I don't fully agree with the fact that you should fill your macros with bars and little snacks that aren't going to be as satiating, but I'd rather have you guys be prepared and have a plan to stick to rather than indulging and munching on all these crazy treats left around at work. So it's not always ideal, but this is something that is super cool that I actually haven't even tried to suggest. One of my friends suggested this, and I was like, wow, that's a really good idea. If you don't have time to meal prep, throw some raw veggies or whatever in Tupperware with some protein, put some water in the bottom, and steam it in the microwave at work. Like, that's super easy. And to the extent of what your meal prep is, it's literally throwing in a bunch of veggies into a Tupperware. That's it. And you can just do the rest later. And then also going back to spicing things up with condiments, spices, whatever. And that also just eliminates the hassle of having to cook at home all the time. But my main point there is basically you just have to be flexible. So for people that are always on the go, they might have to be willing to have smaller little snacks and bigger, just dense meals, or the complete opposite, and maybe eating a few times a day. So that's enough with that. Let's move on to point 7. Hopefully you guys get my reference here. So how do you eat an elephant, right? You eat it one bite at a time. So you have to begin with the end, and you first have to choose your end. So going back to the elephant thing, you can eat a whole, if I want to eat a whole elephant, I got to start with baby steps. So I can't just put the whole leg in my mouth. And, well, I could try, but I'd probably be really unsuccessful. But anyways, you have to start small and think smaller, and think in terms of more incremental and generic, I guess, goals that will lead you to the end big goal. So let's just say this. I'm going to wake up tomorrow and I'm going to make it my goal to just hit my macros before I go to bed. It's that simple. That's all I'm going to do. But what I should be thinking about in terms of short-term goals throughout the day, I should be thinking small, doable goals, and they should all compromise my end result of hitting my macros by the time I go to bed. And it can be as simple as just like going from each meal. So I'll prep my breakfast the day before and make sure I have like some veggies to take on the go that I'm going to make at work or something, and just worry about that. So I'm just going to worry about my breakfast, and then I'm not going to think about it until I have to worry about lunch. And then I'm going to make sure I have a couple snacks to hold me out through the day before I get home. Like, I'm not even going to think about dinner until I get home. So, I guess you can think of it like that and kind of break down your goal, because a lot of the times it's overwhelming to think about like your ultimate goal of, losing 20 pounds and making sure I do all these things in the process. And so I guess like the totality of your goal can overwhelm you and cause you to give up because you're not starting small enough. So I think that'll help simplify things a little bit and think in terms of just shorter or more incremental goals that you can focus on. So point 8 here, focus on foods that are proportional to your macros. So I like to think of this more as the macros that I have more of. So I guess for most people, and myself included, I have more protein and carbs than fat, obviously. So if I'm on the go, I need to be flexible and grab something really quick, then I'm going to search for things in terms of just protein and carbs that are moderate with those and then pretty low in fat, so I don't blow out my fat for the day. And my proteins on kind of the higher side. So if I don't eat protein every meal, I know that I'm going to be stuck with 100 grams of protein left at the end of the day, which is horrible and nobody wants to do that. And so it's just easier to think in terms of that. And but like on the other hand, someone who has 355 carbs a day, like you need to think, okay, I need to eat carbs throughout the day or else I'm going to be stuck with like 200 carbs to eat at dinner, which is, I mean, if that's your thing, then that's awesome. But I don't enjoy doing that. So you need to basically just think about what you need to do in order to make up for the discrepancy between those relationships of protein, fats, and carbs. So point number 9 is estimate when you have to. So we're all human and we have to be human, and we can't be robots all the time. Sometimes there are going to be situations where you really have no choice but to estimate, whether that be because you didn't plan ahead, whether like you are going to a friend's house and you just, whatever it may be, like you have to figure out ways to be human. And sometimes relying on estimating in times of craziness or if you're in a pinch, like it's the best thing you can possibly do. And more likely than not, you're going to have your phone with you. Pull out your phone and utilize the MyFitnessPal database and find something that is similar to whatever you're eating and just use your best judgment. And in these situations, it's not a bad thing, because at the end of the day, estimating is going to be much better than just giving up, not tracking, and having no clue how many macros you ate at the end of the day. Because one, you're going to have no idea what to input on your Excel sheet, tell your coach. You can be like, oh, well, I just kind of didn't bother doing it because I didn't have my scale. But you're in control and you can be as flexible as possible and as accurate as possible. And that's what's going to yield you the most success. So you have to be consistent with that. And obviously estimating every single day, every meal is not ideal, but again, going back to the sustainability of this program, sometimes you're going to have to be flexible, and that's what's sustainable. And you have to be okay with that. And it's just a good resource to use, especially when it comes to winging it if you're not fully prepared. So number 10, no regrets. So don't be afraid to weigh and measure your food in front of people, family members, coworkers, friends, your office, in a restaurant, Chipotle, wherever you are. You shouldn't be ashamed. And if you're that worried about people passing judgment upon you, then you can simply explain it to them and just tell them what you're doing and why you have to focus on this type of accuracy. And more times than not, if they love you and they're your family and friends, they're going to understand. And of course, it looks crazy to go to a restaurant and weigh your food. Like, what we do is crazy. But if you just explain to people, then they're going to understand. But at the end of the day, you have goals and you came to us with your goals. And if it's something that is that important to you and that you're constantly thinking about, it shouldn't matter what other people think. And who knows, in like a couple of years, everyone's going to be weighing and measuring your food. You're going to go out to a restaurant and they're going to be like, oh, how many ounces of protein do you want? Do you want 100 grams of veggies? Like, I seriously feel like people are going to do that. But anyways, point being, just bring your food scale everywhere you go. I have one in my purse at all times that I bring with me everywhere just for emergencies, and especially if you have a very strict goal, for example, making weight and you have to know what you're eating, you have to know exactly to the gram what your protein, fats, and carbs are, then that's going to be something that is that should be a non-negotiable, because making weight is a non-negotiable. I know when I'm prepping for me, I weigh and measure everything everywhere. So basically, just don't worry about other people think and just focus on you. You guys do you. So yeah, that is all I have. I hope you guys learned something from all of this. I know I said a lot about the shift workers, so I hope somebody out there can either take something from that or do some trial and error with that and figure out what works for them. And I hope you guys know how to wing it efficiently now. So if you have any questions, please post. I don't see any. Hi, guys. If anyone has any questions, come on, hit me. I know I said a lot, and if you guys are curious as to what these 10 points are, I'd be happy to post them in the comments afterwards. Just let me know if that's what you guys want. Come on, somebody has to have a question. I know you guys are there. I'm just gonna wait. Someone has to hit me with a question. It doesn't have to be about this either. It can be about anything. It can be about weightlifting. It can be about what you're gonna eat tomorrow. It can be what you need to fill your macros with at the end of the day. It can help you out with that. Yay, I'm glad you thought it was helpful, Giovanna. All right, guys, come on. I'm going to wait here another couple minutes, and if nobody has a question, someone has to have a question. Come on. I'm going to wait here. I'm going to wait until 8. Well, anyways, in the meantime, I will just thank you guys for tuning in tonight, whoever did. It is Friday. It's 8 p.m. over here. I don't know if I mentioned where I am. I'm in Rochester, New York. So if you guys don't know where Rochester is, it's Western New York. I'm about an hour from Canada and Buffalo. I'm always curious to hear about food pre and post workouts. Okay, so for pre and post workout foods, that's going to be really individualized. It's really trial and error with this. There's no like secret recipe to what's going to make you feel really good pre and post workout. I can tell you in terms of like you're going to want a dense carb to keep you full and satiated throughout your workout. I know for me, I always have the same pre-workout meal. I eat breakfast. I have potatoes, egg whites, bacon, some broccoli thrown in there, and some cheese on top. But either way, you're gonna want a pretty low fat before your pre-workout. I guess that's what works for me. But really just focus on things that are going to keep you full. I know that when I train in the morning, I always have oatmeal because that's something that is going to keep me full, and it's a nice complex carb to keep me going for a while in a long session. But post-workout is pretty much going to be the same thing. You're going to want a nice balance of protein and carbs, and whatever makes you feel good pre-workout, basically. I'm about to go on vacation. This is Jen. I'm about to go on vacation, and there will be a lot of drinking. Any suggestions on how to not completely F up? Yes, so it is totally possible to go on vacation and not F up. I went to Punta Cana for a week and a half last year, and prepped a bunch of high protein foods. So I had jerky, I had whey protein, I had some protein bars, I had deli meat. I packed in a little cooler on the plane. Um, and I also just had like some easy carbs, like granola. I had oatmeal. I had some rice cakes and some raw veggies. Basically, the key to staying on point with your diet on vacation is to, I don't know if you're going to be using your phone or not and using MyFitnessPal, but what I did was I pre-planned about 50 to 60% of my day and estimated when I had to. Like I didn't worry about bringing my scale to dinners and everything, just because when you're on vacation, you shouldn't be worrying about weighing and measuring everything. It's going to be much more important to focus on the people that you're with, the time that you're having, and not stressing out about diet. So if you focus on at least pre-planning a little bit, like 50 to 60% of your day, and then eating a meal that is roughly going to fit your macros or get close to it, then you're going to be fine. And obviously don't, if you are going to drink alcohol, I would say try to not go overboard on the sugar. If you're going to be counting, then you should try to count it in your macros if you can. But the sugar is what's going to kill you. So I always go simple. Things that are low in carbs, obviously, soda water with a lime and whatever your drink of choice is. What are my favorite snacks? I don't really snack often, but I really like granola with yogurt, with some berries on top. I don't know if this is necessarily a snack, but sometimes throughout the day, if I have some extra macros to spare, like between big meals, I'll have pancakes, like protein pancakes or something. But for snacking, I guess I would say I save desserts for my snacks. Okay, let's see here. Okay, I'm seeing these comments now. So a lot of people talk about sodium. What's the target or the most to take during one day? So there's not really like a limit that we give for sodium. I know MyFitnessPal, I think it says 2,300 milligrams. But if it's not an issue for you, then you shouldn't really be worried about it. If your health is at risk because of sodium, then you should restrict yourself to a certain amount, obviously dependent on how serious that is. But ultimately, sodium is going to make you retain water. And a lot of people freak out, if they eat out and have a meal that has a lot of salt from a restaurant, that they'll just gain weight the day after. That's just because sodium makes your body hold on to water. So that is that's really the one thing that you should be thinking about there if you like really want to avoid weight spikes, I guess, or like freaking out about the scale. Then watch your sodium. I always know that like when I have too much sodium, I'll wake up and I literally am puffy. I'm like super sensitive to sodium. One time I had some pizza and I woke up the next morning and it looked like I had just cried because I was like puffy. So if you're like that, then I would say be mindful of it. But overall, it doesn't really matter too much unless you have a health risk or a health issue. What is my alcohol of choice? I'm not really a huge drinker, but I like wine. And it doesn't make my head hurt as much. Well, if I overdrink, it will. But I like to just leisurely drink wine here and there. But with I just don't really drink often. So sometimes I'll have a drink with dinner, but usually I find that if I drink, it just makes me feel like crap the next morning, even if it's not a lot. And I usually train the next day, so I don't really, I always think like, oh, you're going to feel like crap tomorrow if you do that. You shouldn't. So, yeah. Is there a daily sugar max we should try not to exceed? I don't remember. Let me check what the MyFitnessPal tells you, there's not really a limit. So again, with kind of going back to the sodium thing, there's like a recommended amount that you shouldn't exceed, but ultimately if all of your foods are coming from there's sugar in everything. So there's sugar in fruit, vegetables, starches, but they're all natural sugars, right? So you don't have to worry about that too much if all of your foods are whole foods, and they're all natural sugars. But on the other hand, if you're filling your macros with all processed foods and fake sugars, that might not be good for you in the long term. So I would just be mindful of that. MyFitnessPal says 57 grams of sugar, but yeah, I would say just make sure that you're filling your macros with like natural sugars. I wouldn't worry about it too much. Why do you sometimes, oh, I'm sorry, Courtney, I missed this. Why do sometimes you change your carbs for workout days versus same carbs all week? This is really all dependent on the person. So sometimes if you're really trying to move along progress, it's good to have rest day carbs and training day carbs. But sometimes people who are training really hard are going to need those extra carbs on their rest days. So it's really all individualized. There's not really like a prescription for it. It's all just based on the client's goals and what their training looks like, most of all. Hi, Sarah. Nice to hear your voice. I love this. This is so cool. I think, let me see here. I think that was it. So I've been going for just about 40 minutes. That was perfect. Adi told me I had to be on here for 30 minutes and then do 10 minutes of questions. So this is great. So it was so nice being able to talk to you guys and kind of help you out a little bit and finally kind of introduce myself to the rest of the team who doesn't know me. Hopefully you guys learned something from all of this. If you guys have any additional questions, you can post them in the comments and I'll do my best to give you a great answer. It can be about anything. It can be about winging it as I talked about this whole time, or just something that you want to know about me. So yeah, I hope you guys had fun watching this. Thanks for spending your Friday night with me. I don't know what time is it there for all you guys, but it's 8:10 here, so I'm getting sleepy. So yeah, thank you guys. I will see you around the Facebook group.